thank you for coming on to the next CFO podcast. And before we jump in, I was at the Padres game yesterday, which was a great day. But I know you're with the Red Sox for over 20 years. You're in a tough division, got the Yankees, the Orioles, and chasing a wild card spot. How do you feel about the rest of the season? Are you feeling optimistic or cautiously optimistic? How things look on your end?
Yeah, I mean, overall, we've had a very good season, especially relative to expectations. I think we went through the offseason and our fans and media weren't sure. We were coming off two last place finishes in our division. And so we're really excited about how we've played. We have a young core developing, young pitchers, young position players, a lot of speed and excitement on the bases. Baseball can be a maddening sport. You can win 6 out of 7, and then you can lose 4 out of 5. And we're just coming off a sweep at home against the Diamondbacks. So today, the office is feeling a little less optimistic than it was maybe on Thursday after we took 2 out of 3 from the Astros. But that's part of the fun. Part of the
Yeah.
fun is 162 games, up and down roller coaster. Listen, we're in the hunt. We got to play better for the last 6 weeks here, but we're excited about our potential.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a Braves fan at heart. I can't lie. It's you can be the best team you've been in a while and walk into the playoffs and get pushed right out. So hopefully y'all get in. I'll be pulling for you. And thanks for giving us that quick take right
Yeah.
there. All right. So a little bit about your background. I did a little bit of research myself. I know you've been with the Red Sox for over 20 years, and I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and some other stuff I could find. Like I touched on before, MIT, I think a mechanical engineering
That's
degree.
fair. Yeah.
And at one point you were in teaching as well. Could you give a little background about how all that led up to you being a CFO, the kind of path that brought you along, and some of those turning points that really pointed you in this direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give the shorter length version of
Sure.
probably a longer story, but I think it comes down to way back when I was a kid, my parents worked at MIT and they modeled like loving your job, like basically being incredibly passionate. They would come home from work excited and excited to go to the next day. And so I sort of felt like, you know what, it's really important to love your job and have passion. And I've been lucky that at each stop that has been the case. So I did go to MIT, got a mechanical engineering degree. First job out of college was a consultant at Bain and Company. Really loved that. It was about 2 years. Loved the experience. Really taught me how to think about business, how to solve business problems, make them more efficient, use data. But I wasn't jumping out of the bed after a little bit of time with the actual companies I was helping. So I thought, you know what? I'm passionate about kids. I'm passionate about making a difference. I'm going to try teaching eighth grade math in the Boston public school system.
Oh,
Really a
wow.
pretty big career 180, but had spent 4 years doing that and loved that. I coached the after school basketball program. I ran the school newspaper, kind of poured myself into that for 4 years. And coming to the Red Sox was a little bit serendipitous and lucky. I just applied to be an unpaid summer intern in
Oh,
the
wow.
summer of from my third year, between my third and fourth year teaching, summer 2003. I actually emailed our then CEO, Larry Lucchino, blindly. I guessed at his email address. I guessed it was llucchino at redsox.com. I was right. Got in the door as an unpaid intern, worked hard, was able to do some things people like. They offered me a part-time job, paying minimum wage, $8 an hour at the time. And then that turned into a full-time job as a business analyst in June of '04, and I've been here ever since. And so, we can talk a little bit more about my journey to CFO, but that was sort of how I got in the door here at the Red Sox, and learned. And this was my passion, and I've loved it ever since.
That's awesome. Along that path, you had to have some advice, maybe some people that took you under their wing. Is there anybody that stood out? I read one article where I definitely know you gave someone their flowers that helped you along their way, but anyone in particular you want to point out and what their impact was on you?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 4 people that come to mind. My father, number one, again, just modeling hard work, treating people with respect, always sort of wanting to learn. He was just always been a role model for me. One of my best friends, Jim, was my manager at Bain. And so he, similar advice, just work hard, treat people with respect, always be learning. Larry Lucchino, the former president and CEO, who I mentioned, was a role model for me. And then the current president and CEO, Sam Kennedy, who has been my boss for the last several years. We share a wall, we sit next to each other. And so those 4 have probably been the sort of most impactful kind of mentor figures for me. And I've
Yeah,
learned, they're different personalities, so I've been able to learn different things from all of them, but a lot of consistencies in how they lead and manage as well.
that's awesome. And thanks for sharing that. In talking about your current CEO, y'all have y'all been with the Red Sox about the same amount of time? Does your history go back? Can you remember doing those intern jobs or other things and kind of come up together? Do you mind telling
Yeah,
us a
he
little bit
he
about
he
that?
he has about 1 year more of tenure than I did. So the John Henry Tom Werner ownership group, Fenway Sports Group, acquired the Red Sox in really like February of 2002.
Hmm.
Sam Kennedy, our current CEO, my current boss, was one of many people that came across from the San Diego Padres, where Larry Lucchino was he
Okay.
came over to run the Red Sox from the Padres, and so he showed up in the spring/summer of '02. I showed up as an intern in the summer of '03, and we've both been here ever since. 22, I think, seasons. Like I said, he has me beat by 1 year.
Does he ever
But
pull that card to win an argument or anything? Is that
well, he's got the experience, and he's got he's definitely got the seniority and title on me too. But we work really well together. We've been collaborating really the whole time I've been here.
that's awesome. That's a great way to have a relationship between a CFO and CEO for sure. I'm curious to talk a little bit more about your business. In particular, you have a probably a pretty unique business model compared to a lot of traditional businesses. And baseball's been around a long time. I don't want to say it's not traditional, but just maybe the business model, how you produce revenue, everything else. So, how does financial performance management for a sports organization really differ from a more traditional business? And I know you've been with the Red Sox a long time, but you've got to have some sense of how that differs. Are there any interesting seasonality quirks for baseball organizations? Does your fiscal year match the baseball season?
Yeah, I mean our fiscal year is January 1st to 12/31. The baseball season obviously falls right in the middle of that, March through September, and if you're lucky, October. So there is, sort of a calendar year, a recurring calendar year recurrence to the business. When I think about our business, there's sort of two sides of it. On the one hand, to your point, there's a pretty recurring, traditional, structured. You sell tickets, you sell hot dogs, you sell beer, you sell media rights, you sell sponsorship, and those things are consistent, and we do our best to grow that revenue by adding attendance, raising prices, selling more sponsors, etc. And that's the core of the business. That's certainly the majority of it. But I think since our tenure, we've really looked for non-traditional ways to raise revenue. So concerts, we're going to have 10, 12 major concerts. We have over 500 private events at the space. We've had hockey here. We've had football games. We think of Fenway Park as a 365-day-a-year venue, whereas the previous owners really thought of it as a baseball stadium. So
Yeah.
I think, and then we're also looking at other ways to sort of increase revenues. With our fans, if they can't come to Fenway, are there ways to create rewards programs, membership programs, these types of things? And finally, Fenway Sports Group is a larger parent company of multiple entities. We have
Yep.
the Pittsburgh Penguins, we have Liverpool Football Club, we've got a lot of other properties. And so we're looking to sort of expand, in those different areas as well.
That's awesome. And that kind of hit on some different points. And I have a couple of questions about that I'd love to follow up with. A, are there any technologies that you've really adopted or really helped you look into those other revenue streams? It's interesting that you said concerts right off the bat. I was going to ask about that because the Padres run a lot of concert series and they're right down the road from me. But is there anything, data, technology wise, that helps you gain more insight to what the fans want, maybe what the community wants, where you can maximize that revenue?
Yeah, I mean, we've been on a journey of fan understanding and data for almost the entire time I've been here. I actually think it was 2005 maybe, where we first were like, we need a CRM system. We didn't
Hmm.
have a CRM system, and we had some rudimentary starts. But now, the crux of what we do when we're trying to sell tickets to fans is to understand their preferences, their past history, their data, and we always say we like to serve the right message to the right fan at the right time. So we used to,
Yeah.
use this sort of analogy that we'd be hunting with a shotgun. We would just send an email to our entire database, and it would just.
Yeah.
And now we're sending very targeted, like all companies in the world, of
Sure.
course. Sending very targeted emails to very targeted groups of fans that are segmented in a certain way to have the most effectiveness on the marketing side. And on the other part, on technology, this might not feel like it's a direct revenue generator, but the other thing we look at is a fan experience at a sporting event is about eliminating friction, right? So what does
Yeah.
friction mean? It's okay. traffic to the stadium, parking, getting through the gates, waiting in line at the bathroom, waiting in line at the concession stand. Anytime that a fan is doing something that's not enjoying the game with their family and friends. And we're trying to implement technology to reduce that friction. So we've got a lot
Yeah.
of automated things at the concession stands where fans can just grab their beer and soda. They can put it on this technology thing, and they can check out themselves. MLB is piloting facial recognition to enter games. They call it
Yeah.
go-ahead entry. So there's a lot of different things that are designed to improve the fan experience, which hopefully improves ticket sales and also increase per caps and things like that on people what they spend.
Yeah, it's been really amazing what all MLB stadiums have done and sporting arenas in general. So that's great to hear. It, the topic on everyone's mind right now is artificial intelligence and AI. Have you really started to see an impact in that you can leverage or the organization can leverage, or is that still a little ways out for
Yeah, I mean,
your
it's
group?
funny. We use a lot of baseball analogies, and we say we're probably still in the first or second inning of a nine
Sure.
inning game. We're absolutely already using it in some areas and looking to use it in more. And so, for example, we did a pilot this year with sort of the image generation, AI capability. Whereas in the
Yeah.
past, we would have our graphic designers, we'd have an ad, we promoting maybe our family packs, which is 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, 4 sodas to a family. And they would, manually create the ad that we put on Facebook, and maybe they'd create two versions because there'd be with AI, you can create 100 versions and with the click of a button. You feed it the stock images, you feed it the text you want, and then you can do A/B testing on that, and see which ones are working better. So, that's just one example, I mean, of many, and internally we're using AI to, consider summarizing meetings to sort of, even helping us with our programming. I just got an email from our head of technology earlier about a pilot that we're looking to do with some things more internally with our workforce. So it is a huge opportunity for everybody. I think we're still trying to get our arms around exactly what it looks like and how it's going to improve our business, but we are fully diving into its potential.
Yeah. Sounds like you're balancing the risk with making sure you maximize the promise, which is what I've heard from a lot of CFOs and
Yeah, I
Office
mean,
of
there's no
Finance
doubt
leaders.
that our legal department is heavily involved in every single word
Yeah.
in the agreements that we're writing in terms of, privacy and other sort of risk things. So you're right. You have to balance the excitement from the marketing and sales guys and gals with the importance of making sure that you're, making decisions that manage the risk that comes with this, as all organizations are doing.
That's awesome. Uh, you know, I appreciate that answer on AI, and we may come back around to that. But I have a couple more questions kind of about the organization and the different entities you have, the other teams you mentioned. Are you involved much with Liverpool or Pittsburgh, or do you mainly handle the Red Sox and coordinate with another CFO at each one of those groups as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my previous bosses, who no longer is here, used to say, 75% of my time is spent on the Red Sox, and the other 75% of my time is spent on the other teams. And so, sometimes it feels like technically my role in business card is Red Sox, and I would say the vast majority of my time is focused on the Red Sox. But
Sure.
I also was fortunate to be involved in pretty much every deal, the acquisitions of those other properties. So when we acquired Liverpool Football Club in 2010, when we acquired Roush Fenway Racing, the NASCAR team in 2007, we acquired the Penguins, Pittsburgh Penguins a couple of years ago. There was a group of us that sort of had double duty, and we would do the financial due diligence and legal due diligence and travel across to understand the opportunities. And so that was a great part of my career, to be part of
Yeah.
those decisions and the sort of thought process around the acquisitions. Day to day, I wouldn't say that I have, day to day responsibilities, but we share ideas all the time.
Yeah.
So I know the other, property CFOs very well. I know their head of technologies very well. They might, we have monthly calls where we're sort of raising our challenges. And if one team says, oh, we did this certain thing, it worked well, then we're saying, okay, let me learn more about that. So there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of indirect collaboration. And that's part of what I love working for Fenway Sports Group, is the ability to really kind of like, have a large network to share things. So not formally engaged, but definitely, familiar with those businesses and definitely work hand in hand.
Nice. Well, I hope they at least sent you over for a tour of Anfield at some point, because I've heard that
Yeah,
that's
I did
legendary.
go in the due diligence process, flew over there. It was the winter time, so there weren't any matches. Got a
Hmm.
great behind the scenes tour, but I have not seen a match there, so I need to get over there and,
Oh
and actually
man.
see a match. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you do. Well, it's a good start to the season. I know big manager change and already out with a win to start the season and a
Yeah, 2-0 after
multi-goal win.
after yesterday.
Yeah,
They won their second game. So yeah, no,
yeah,
it's been a promising start to the very early stages of the season for sure.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, back to kind of maybe some of the nuances of your business model and what you do. Does do you have to reforecast often based on how the team is performing? What the playoffs look like when maybe the concert lineup comes up. How is that affected? And things like maybe even off season when you're negotiating contracts and maybe free agency and things like that. Does that really impact you having to reforecast multiple times?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I started in this position in the fall of 2015 in the CFO role. And so coming up on 10 years, which is kind of crazy. And I think historically we would provide forecast quarterly. We sort of provide ownership, and that we would definitely change things that stood out that we knew about. But the last several years, we started to move to a monthly forecast, and we try to really actually really get into. My team will tell me about a $25,000 variance in our marketing spend because somebody, and so we're really getting into the sort of details around it. And I think that's important and we're sending ownership a reforecast every month. And
Yeah,
the things you mentioned, if ticket sales look like they're ahead or behind, we're gonna notify them that. If player payroll, we had some early injuries this year that weren't expected that took people out for the season. We had to replace them with some players. Our payroll went up a little bit. So I think we're constantly just trying to give ownership the best information. We often
sure.
say nobody likes surprises, but especially not negative surprises. So you want to
Yeah,
get ahead of, potentially missing some part of your budget for whatever reason, and we over communicate, and I think that's and we have the software tools to do that. I
yeah,
know, as I know this podcast is Planful, which is a great tool that we use. We're a very happy customer, and the Planful software is one that we use monthly to make sure that we're tracking those forecast changes. And also for our budget, of course, we use it for all the planning as well. But on the forecast side, we wouldn't have been able to do that. Years and years ago, we did it all in Excel, budget,
yeah.
and it would have been a lot harder to be able to implement that type of real-time updates.
That's great to hear. Glad to hear you're a happy customer and you're leveraging it as often as you are to reforecast and rebudget. That's exactly what we want. Continuous planning seems to be the way forward for a lot of organizations that gives their leadership all the information they need at their fingertips. So great to hear that for sure. On a personal note, is there any technology new, ongoing that you feel like you can't live without or you use every day?
I mean, my iPhone I use every day, probably too much. I'm trying to think of
I'll give you
personal.
one real quick for me that may. I've started using AI to ask questions and arguments that I don't want to argue for more than a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I certainly need to learn more about AI. I've heard the statement that AI isn't going to replace people's jobs, but people who are good at using AI are gonna
hmm,
replace people's jobs, and sort of the prompting aspect of it.
yeah,
Understanding how to, because I have seen examples of, both in my personal life and professionally, where someone who's more familiar with AI is like, oh yeah, let me just ask ChatGPT this question, and then what comes
yeah,
back, and I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. So I definitely, like I said, we are, excited about its potential. I am personally shocked at times at how, you know, a friend of mine had this long, letter and told AI to shorten it, and what came back
yeah,
was like almost a perfectly shortened version of the letter that had
yeah,
every important point. So, AI is definitely something that I plan to, sort of keep using, keep learning more about. And I'm trying to
sure,
think of other just like day-to-day technology.
yeah,
I mean, I'm always shocked at some of the things that the iPhone can do, the new apps that come
yeah.
out, or different things like that. I'm always, making our lives easier.
Yeah, it's great. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I know you did it. I know I did. I couldn't imagine having to print off directions on a map. I think
Yeah, I
that's
was actually just talking to somebody even before MapQuest, there were these maps you had in the car with the grid, and it was
Oh
1 through
yeah.
10 and A through D, and you'd have to look in the back for the street name. And I mean, yeah, we forget what that was like.
Yeah, absolutely. When you had to learn the actual grid system of the
Yeah,
city you were in.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Well, any podcasts, any books, anything like that that you're currently interested in?
Yeah, I mean, what I spend a lot of time in the car, and so I try to listen to different podcasts. There's some Red Sox podcasts that I listen to sort of keep up. There's one called Section 10 that I just sort of keep up on the fan temperature. Smartless is another one.
My wife
Uh,
loves that one.
that I listen to. I listened to the one with Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama on the same one. I was like, wow, getting three presidents at the same time
Yeah.
is pretty impressive. Mel Robbins is another one. There's different ones that I listen to that I enjoy, and then also some audio books occasionally. Sorry, Audible. Yeah, Audible books. So yeah, I try to mix in different things. That's sort of the time in my commute where I try to sort of think about what are the things that I can listen to and leverage, just to understand things. I should probably, if you have any good tips on AI podcasts, I'll definitely try to listen to
Yeah,
those as well.
we'll shoot you some over. And what I'll say about AI as well that was really eye-opening to me this past summer with our interns. I don't know if y'all have interns during
We
the
do.
summer or not, and if
Yeah.
they're in undergraduate, but we had some at Planful. And it was really amazing to me to see and realize how much they're being trained and actively being encouraged to embrace the technology. It's kind of like you said, it's not going to replace people, but the people that can really leverage it as a
Yeah.
tool, I think are really going to be ahead. And if you don't think that the younger generations are being taught,
Yeah.
enabled, and brought up that way, you're doing
Well,
yourself
and
a
and
disservice.
sort of an indirect comment to that, I started here in 2003. Most of the work I did was in Excel and PowerPoint. To this day, I still use Excel very frequently for certain things. But this generation of analysts that I now have on my team, they run circles around me in terms of what they can do with, different coding languages and the AI and the sort of, all the things they're using to do the work we're doing. I just am shocked at how easily they're able to sort of produce, really interesting, insightful analysis of our data and put it in a format that's just so easy. We have these Tableau reports that are just, so things have just come a long way from when I was sort of more in my, earlier days. And it's really fun to see how people can leverage technology across our business, to just make everything faster and easier. And the younger generation really is pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Well, speaking of the younger generation and maybe even the not so young, but people coming up, maybe trying to become a CFO, already a CFO, maybe. Any advice, any things that stood out in your career? The hard skills of accounting and finance. If you work hard enough, you can learn those. But what are really some of the soft skills that you realized along the way really added value? I know when I got to a VP of finance level and started being able to sit in meetings with the CEO, the CFO, and hearing what really mattered to them, what registered to them, really kind of broadened my horizon and made me look at things a different way. Is there
Yeah,
any
I mean,
advice?
it's a great question, and I get this question at different times, whether I'm interviewing someone or, advice I would give to lead to success. And you hit the nail on the head as it relates to like the hard skills, right? We have graphic designers that their talent is graphic designing, and I couldn't do that job, and you probably couldn't do that job because you don't have the training. We
Yeah,
have photographers that are great photographers, and we have analysts that are great analysts, and we have salespeople that are great salespeople. So those things vary, right, across different
yeah,
departments and roles. But I think there's three things that I sort of feel like are important to success. That, number one is just ambition, hard work, right? Work ethic, right? And so, I
yeah,
tell people you can't control the brain you were born with and whether you're good at math or you're not good at math or whatever, but you can control how hard you work and you can control how you use your time. So, just sort of making sure that when you're working on a task, whether it's professionally or personally or whatever, that you're putting every ounce of your energy into it, you're working hard, and people know that you're a hard worker and you're disciplined and all those things. So I think work ethic and ambition is one. The second one, and these are cliche a little bit, but it's just constantly learning. And learning can be sitting in a meeting where you're not even saying one word, but you're paying attention to how
yeah,
other people talk and act and think, and anytime I'm in a meeting with Sam Kennedy, my boss, I'm not just saying this, I learned something. I learned something
Yeah.
about he's treating people, how he interacts, how he's, leading, how he's motivating, and every situation like that is an incredible opportunity to learn, so,
Yeah.
we do have a summer internship program, and different interns, like all people, have different personalities, but you can tell some of them that are really eager to every minute of opportunity of learning, and others that maybe aren't quite as focused on that skill, or that characteristic. And so I think, and even to your point, podcasts, books, whatever else you can get your hands on to learn is the second one. And the third is just treating people with kindness and respect. I think people, I call it like ability, smile, be positive, like help people, you know, no matter what job you're in, people like working with people who are fun to be around, kind, respectful, want to help, want to pitch in. And it just makes such a difference when you're sort of in an environment where somebody is like that. It's just, and I think in any role in any department, that sort of personal likability, kindness, respect, treat people well is that leads to success in my experience all the time.
Yeah, I would say, I did accounting for a long time, finance a long time as well. And those hard skills are very important and you need to learn them and be good at them. But I think maybe the skills I learned bartending and waiting tables, just how to have that customer service attitude, even with my own team,
Yeah.
it was totally valuable. You
Yeah,
can't,
and a
it's
hundred
crazy.
percent, and just to dive in on that word customer, with my finance and accounting department and my IT department, when I started in this role, I came up with these sort of guiding principles, and sometimes in IT and accounting, particularly, like, we don't think of who's our customers, but
Sure.
everyone is our customer, every
Yeah.
employee that wants information, that needs help with something, and I want my staff to treat them like a customer service rep would treat them.
Hmm.
Make sure you over deliver, over communicate, make sure you get things as fast as you can, as accurate as you can. And that customer service training, I totally agree. Bartending,
Yeah.
serving, whatever experience helps you exceed someone's expectations. If they're expecting an 8 out of 10, give them a 9.5 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
people love being surprised and delighted by service that goes beyond their expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps when you get into things like budgeting season and have to have tough
Yeah,
conversations.
for
So
sure. Yeah.
there's that as well. So I want to ask just two more business questions and then we'll kind of wrap up with some more relaxed questions. But the first, and this is kind of going back to something before, and I just kind of passed over it, but I was curious, um, the relationship between all the entities that you have, is that a traditional parent subsidiary relationship, or is it a little less traditional since, really the Red Sox, Liverpool, the Penguins, those are all major brands that kind of
Yeah.
stand on their own. How does that really, without giving us away anything you
Yeah,
shouldn't,
no, I
how
mean,
does
I
that
think
really
it,
structure out?
I think it's fairly traditional, I think, in the sense of, like, Disney has ESPN and their theme parks, and they're sort
Hmm.
of very different businesses that stand on their own 2 feet under one parent.
Hmm.
And, Fenway Sports Group, the parent company of our, entity, Liverpool, Penguins, Nesson, Roush Fenway, Red Sox, etc., are individual entities that have their own CEOs, their own CFOs, their own head of HR, their own, all this sort of, they can stand on their own 2 feet, but collectively it creates this sort of platform that we feel like elevates the parent company. We can do shared resources. We sort of have these abilities to do things together collectively. Like I said, sharing best practices, right? Sharing the best
Yeah.
practices, but also at times, negotiating. If we have a vendor that might serve 2 or 3 properties, we can negotiate better rates. If we have a sponsor that is a sponsor at the Red Sox, we'll try to have them be a sponsor at Liverpool when it makes sense. So the platform nature, especially in sports, allows us to sort of expand in our opportunities, both on the revenue and the expense side, beyond what a traditional single sports team ownership structure might be. But at the end of the day, they're individual entities that are under one roof that work together.
No roll up. Yeah. Awesome. Um, I think I read as well, and whether it's the Red Sox, whether it's you personally, are there any charities, outreach, locally or otherwise, that you'd like to mention while we have you on today? I think I read that you really like to push STEM education to the youth, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, the Red Sox Foundation, which is our official team charity, and I'm actually the treasurer of it, has given out I think over 150 million dollars,
That's awesome.
since it was created in 2002, and also raises I think over something like 300 million dollars for the Jimmy Fund, which is the
Yeah,
Dana-Farber Cancer Institute here in Boston. So that organization does a tremendous amount of great work. Becca Sawwasser, who's a colleague of mine, runs it as the executive director. Like I said, I'm the treasurer, but it's just incredible to see all the core programs. There's youth sports. We sponsor, youth baseball and softball in Boston, where we just pay for everything. We pay for the umpires, the equipment, the jerseys, etc., for kids that get to play baseball. We have health and wellness programs. We support the MGH home base program, which is for veterans of war that come back with sort of PTSD and things like that, and we
yeah,
raise $3 million a year for that. So the Red Sox Foundation has many, many, many amazing causes and organizations that it supports that I'm very proud of. Personally, my time teaching math has sort of caused me to have a passion for you know kids learning math, because math
hmm
was always, I was on the math team when I was in high school and in middle school. It's always been sort of the subject that's been nearest and dearest to my heart, and I taught it for 4 years. So when there are opportunities, I do an annual thing where students, high school students, come into Fenway and I speak to them, and just they get a tour of Fenway and these little things that sort of just try to, like, in my teaching days, I think that sort of instinct to enjoy you know helping other people learn, going back to that second bullet point that I talked about, is definitely
yeah.
something I'm passionate about.
That's awesome. That's really great. And before we go today, anything you're looking forward to? Any vacations? Any big events? Anything concert at Fenway that you have coming up?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the Red Sox hopefully winning a few more baseball
There we
games,
go. Yeah.
over, at least over the next few weeks here. Like I said, the last 3 games particularly have been a challenge, but that's part
They're
of
gone.
baseball.
You moving forward. That series is over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I think, look, Fenway Park is a special place.
it
We have
is.
we're very lucky to have incredibly loyal, passionate fans. There's nothing like Fenway Park. I'm biased, of course, but in October for a playoff
Yeah,
game, we've been lucky that we have 4 World Series championships. I've been a part of all 4 of those. I've been at every clinching game. I have 4 World Series rings. There's nothing like a
that's
deep
awesome.
October run. So anytime we get back to the postseason and are able to win a few games, I definitely look forward to that. When it comes to concerts, I'm excited to go to the Pearl Jam concert coming up at
Oh
Fenway.
wow, that'll be awesome.
Pearl Jam's going to be here for a couple nights. I have a group of friends that I'm going to go to that show with, which will be fun. And then I think, what, this is maybe not something I'm looking forward to. I'm actually sad that the summer's over, because it's crazy that my kids go back to school tomorrow, and
Yeah,
we've had a good summer with some trips to the beach and some fun, which was great. And then it's like, wow, you blink and it's school year is back. But that's part of the cycle, which obviously, but I'm a little bit disappointed to feel like summer is coming to a close here, but I like the fall in Boston as well. And hopefully again with some October baseball would be nice.
that's awesome. And spoken like, I'm glad you're finding a good work-life balance. And I think that'll be my last question for you. We really appreciate you being on today. But you said 75% of your time with Red Sox, 75% with the other organizations. We all know that adds up to a bit more than 100%. So glad you're finding some work life balance. But accounting, finance professionals, notorious work life balance, kind of really just hustling it out. Any advice to the up and coming generation of finance and accounting professionals, maybe even some other CFOs out
Yeah.
there on how you manage to become so successful, move up to a great position as CFO of the Red Sox, but still manage to maintain some work-life balance, build what seems like a wonderful family. How have you done that, and how have you pick and chose your moments to really make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not good at it. I mean, I think it's a daily challenge, um, because there are, you do get pulled in different directions, right? So you've got, you know, kids' activities, different things. I have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 7, and my 9-year-old son is big into baseball, And so he's been playing for 4 or 5 years, and I've coached him every year.
Well, that's
The
awesome.
first 3 years as a head coach, and the last 2 years the head coach made it too much, and I was assistant coach. But the point is, that needs to be a priority. I sort of,
Yeah.
when there's a game on Tuesday, doesn't matter what's going on here. I leave at 4, I get to the game, I'm there. It's sort of like consistent, and you sort of make it a priority, and then you work around it. And I think,
Sure.
but it's a challenge. There's times when I miss activities. There's times when I'm traveling, or there's times when, I'm at a game and the kids go to bed, without me being there, and you sort of have to manage that. But I think, this will be in contrast to what I said about work ethic, because on the one hand, I said, spend every minute working and learning and working as hard as you can to be successful. But on the other hand, you are right. Like, you have to find the time to sort of decompress, spend time, whether it's with family or friends, or even just, at home watching a Netflix show. Don't feel guilty. Like people do
Yeah.
that, and that's, important part of the balance. I'm almost 47 years old, and I have not figured out how to achieve this as much as I would like, but it is absolutely an important priority for success. You have to have that
Yeah.
well-rounded life that is not, solely focused on work, or solely focused on something, especially if you have young kids, because
Yeah.
because those years do go by quickly.
Yeah. And I think it's a constant balance for sure. And I think a great word of advice I got from my boss is just make sure you maximize your efficiency when you're working, and that'll
Yeah,
free up more. And just so
yeah,
be work purposefully,
yeah.
and
No,
then
that's that word efficiency. I try to live my whole life with, which is, when you are working on a task, try to do it as efficiently as possible, for sure.